Good evening, members and others who are listening. Welcome to this evening's Medway Council Planning Committee, which was moved originally from the 3rd of July. It was set, it's now been moved to today because of the incidence of the general election. I won't ask members what they were doing this time last week. But I will go straight in to ask for apologies for absence and substitutes, please. Councillor Kemp. Thank you for that. Councillor Nesterov. Councillor Stamp, I think you said. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, and that's the reason why I'm in the chair. Now, the next item on the agenda is record of meeting. Colleagues will have noticed that there's a supplementary agenda item about the record of the meeting related to something that was agreed in the minutes last time. So I'm going to ask the Chief Planning Officer to outline that if he'd be so kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Members, on the second set of minutes, which relates to the meeting on the 5th of June, you will recall a planning application, land south of View Road, Cliff Woods. Members considered it a significantly improved scheme compared to previously approved schemes and were pleased to approve it. However, there was some debate and discussion regarding one of the conditions, condition 28. Members questioned specifically the wording, partly in relation to the restrictions to the ages of 55 or older, and then secondly about the dependents being aged 16 or older. Notwithstanding that, members still resolved to approve the application with the condition. However, officers listened to you. We've gone away, we've given further consideration to this, and we've therefore recommending an amendment to that condition to effectively delete the relevance to dependents of 16 or older, on the basis that it is possible, it's unlikely, but it is possible that children, for whatever reason, are under 16, could go to live with their grandparents, for instance. So we're deleting that aspect, and you'll see the revised condition there on the second page of your supplementary. Thank you.
Are members prepared to approve the minutes with that proviso? Is that okay? Thanks. Agreed. Thank you. So we can agree the minutes. I'll sign them. Thank you. Urgent matters by reason of special circumstances. I'm not aware of any, but I will be making a short announcement at the end of the meeting. Declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests. Over to you, Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you. My usual declaration that I sit on parish or attend various parish councils, but I do not take part or listen to or make any comments in regards to planning that takes place in any of those meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Any other member? Thank you. That leads us, I think, straight into item 5, planning application MC 240221 for the land to the east of Woodlands Cemetery, Cornwallis Avenue, Gillingham. I believe that the presentation is to be given by Amanda, isn't it? Amanda Barnes will do the presentation, so thanks very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. The application is for the construction of a special educational needs and disabilities secondary free school. The site is approximately 1.6 hectares in size, forming the southern half of a greenfield site on the corner of Yokosuka Way, here, and Cornwallis Avenue, here, in Gillingham. The site itself is green open land and slopes down from the southwest corner to the northeast corner, with a drop of around 8 metres. The site is entered by a gate for pedestrians and a gate for maintenance vehicles located off Cornwallis Avenue. That's the vehicular access, and pedestrian is just in here. This is a picture of the front of the site, behind the trees, taken from the opposite side of the road. Again, the site in here, behind the trees. This is looking down Cornwallis Avenue towards the roundabout. Looking back up Cornwallis Avenue, behind here is the site. Yokosuka Way, the tree line boundary there, behind that is the site. This is inside the site, looking towards Beeching's industrial estate. Again, in the site, looking towards the river, you can just see there the industrial estate. View towards Cornwallis Avenue, here is the vehicular access. And here, looking towards the cemetery. The proposal is for a two-storey building to be used for 160 pupils aged 11 to 18 years old with social, emotional and mental health difficulties and with autism spectrum disorder. The school will be set in the centre of the site, which is the L-shaped building here. To the front will be an area of soft landscaping together with the multi-use games area, the Mugger, which is in here, and a grass pitch here. There will also be play space and sensory gardens here and here. To the rear of the building is a car park with spaces for 112 cars and 4 minibuses through here. Photovoltaic panels are proposed over the middle rows of the parking spaces, these spaces here. A number of the parking spaces are proposed to have electric charging available. Access to the site will come from a new road formed to the west of the site from Cornwallis Avenue. There. Internally on the ground floor will be a sports hall, main hall, dining area, together with classrooms, staff rooms, changing rooms, meeting rooms, kitchens, calming rooms and storerooms. The first floor, more classrooms, storerooms, staff rooms, calming rooms, social space and group rooms. The flat roof will contain the plant, including an air handling unit, air source heat pump and plant room, which you can see in the darker orange. It's proposed to screen these from the wider views by areas of soft landscaping in the form of planters, which you can see round the orange boxes with the green in there and across on the other side. The flat roof also incorporates a green roof, which is the green hash, and photovoltaic panels to maximise the overall sustainability of the proposed development, shown in the hashed orange. 3 entrances to the school are proposed, one for the main reception, which is here, with a further 2 separate accesses for pupils with social, emotional and mental health difficulties and a separate one for autism spectrum disorder, one there and there. This is the proposed south elevation that will be facing onto Cornwallis Avenue. The proposed elevation facing Yokosuka Way. Here you can see the voltaic panels across the top of the middle car parking spaces. And here the west elevation, which will be facing onto the cemetery. Again, these are the covered car parking, and you can see on the roof the plant with the screening there in green. Around the eastern boundary of the site with Yokosuka Way, a 3-metre high timber anti-climb acoustic fence is proposed. Along the northern, southern and western boundaries, a 3-metre high secure line anti-climb fence is proposed. This will continue internally to ensure the safety of pupils. Due to the differences in site levels, the site will be built up to the north by approximately 1.9 metres, with a 1 in 3 slope set on the retained council land to the north, which is outside the red line, to soften the difference in land levels. The red line here is the existing, and you can see the build-up mainly through this area here. The Inspire Special Free School is currently in temporary accommodation on an existing site in Chatham. The existing temporary building is reaching the end of its useful life. Medway Council's need for this type of schooling currently cannot be met within its own area, resulting in Medway pupils having to travel outside the area, which increases transport costs as well as causing very high journey times for pupils. The proposed scheme falls inside the urban area of Gillingham, within an area allocated in the local plan for a cemetery extension under policy CF8, seen here with the cross purple hatch. This policy states that the land at Cornwallis Avenue, Gillingham, as defined on the proposal's map, is allocated for an extension to the existing cemetery and not for any other purpose. In normal circumstances, the proposal would, in principle, be unacceptable due to the proposed use being contrary to policy. However, due to the age of the local plan, there is a requirement to reassess the need. An assessment of the need for cemetery space was undertaken in 2017, which found that a proportion of the site could be released, as long as some of it was retained for cemetery use. An area to the north of the proposed site will be retained by the council, which could be used for this purpose. This land boundary, the site in red here, and the area here to be retained by the council. Historically, the wider site has been used as playing fields. The playing pitch strategy was undertaken in 2018-19. At that time, only the northern area of the site was being used for football by Rainham Eagles youth team. This is outside the red line boundary. The site, the subject of the application, is currently used for informal dog walking and in the past has been used periodically as a venue for boot fairs. Despite no formal sports allocation, Sport England have raised a statutory objection to the application because it's not considered to accord with any of the exceptions to their playing fields policy or paragraph 103 of the NPPF, which sets out that the existing open space, including playing fields, should not be built on unless A, an assessment has been undertaken which has clearly shown the open space land to be surplus to requirements, B, the loss resulting from the proposed development would be replaced by equivalent or better provision in terms of quantity in a suitable location, or C, the development is for alternative sports and recreational provision, the benefits of which clearly outweigh the loss of the current or former use. Rainham Eagles, who used the pitch to the north of the application site, have since relocated to another site at Rookery Fields in Gillingham. At the time of the playing pitch strategy, Rookery Fields was not being used for football and was not included in the assessment, so it could be considered that an alternative pitch has been created. In addition, the proposed new school would be providing a new 7-a-side grass pitch and a mugger. The applicants have agreed to enter into a community use agreement that would facilitate the extended use outside of school hours of the mugger, playing field, sports hall and changing rooms for the benefit of the community, all of which can be secured by planning condition on any approval. Despite this agreement, Sport England still object because the applicants have not provided suitable mitigation in line with the adopted playing strategy, which would meet their planning policy exception and the terms of paragraph 103 of the NPPF with regard to the re-provision of an equivalent or better provision. The Department for Education, the DfE, are not agreeable to the request for an off-site sports pitch uplift. As such, should the local planning authority be minded to approve this application, contrary to Sport England's statutory objection, the application needs to be referred to the Secretary of State. It should be noted that there is support in the NPPF for the provision of new schools. Paragraph 99 attaches great importance to ensuring that a sufficient choice of school places are available to meet the needs of existing and new communities. It requires that local planning authorities should take a proactive, positive and collaborative approach to meeting this requirement that will widen choice in education. In the preamble to Policy CF7 of the local plan, it sets out that facilities should be provided in readily accessible locations. It highlights town centres, in particular Chatham. However, due to the nature of this school, with pupils largely being brought in, it's considered the location is acceptable. Despite the concern raised by Sport England, the benefits of the application through the community use agreement, together with the extreme demand for this type of school in Medway, is considered to outweigh the loss of the historic use of the land as a playing pitch, and the principle of the change of use of the land for use by special educational needs school is considered to be acceptable. The building layout has been specifically designed for this cohort of pupils, divided into 3 clear sections. At one end of the building is the teaching block for pupils with autistic spectrum disorder, and at the other, a separate teaching block for those with social, emotional and mental health needs. Between the two are the shared facilities, like the sports hall, the main dining hall, and the specialist teaching. Due to the different needs of each group of pupils, the 3 zones are separated by access control so that movement between them is managed by staff. The building utilises an L-shaped configuration which enables it to fit neatly onto the site and generates a relatively sheltered outdoor area for sensory garden and external dining. The facade materials have been chosen to meet the DFE brief for schools, both in terms of cost and robustness. In particular, a highly robust material is required at the ground floor level. For this reason, the ground floor is proposed to be clad in concrete bricks, while at first floor we'll utilise a cladding system comprising of different coloured panels that are fire resistant. The colours are chosen to depict the different areas of the school. You can see, I can't remember which way round they are, but one is for the ASD students, one is for the social, educational, mental health, and then in the middle is the shared facilities. The site is positioned between brick residential buildings to the north and west and clad industrial buildings to the east. As such, the choice of materials is considered acceptable and will provide a link between the two. To make the main entrance more prominent, striped panels, seen here, will be used in alternating colours to direct the eye to the entrance, together with the introduction of an entrance canopy. The nature of the building has dictated a large solid mass. However, due to its location within the site, the use of materials and soft landscaping is considered to be an acceptable development. This here is showing the car parking, and again with these voltaic panels over the middle sections. Again shown here, looking east. The use of a 3-metre high fencing around the site is unfortunate, especially the acoustic fence along Yokosuka Way. However, due to the nature of the end users, this is entirely appropriate to maintain the safety of the pupils. Where possible, soft landscaping has been used to try and soften the appearance. A small number of trees would need to be removed to facilitate the development, with others requiring pruning. To compensate for the loss of trees, new trees are proposed to be planted on the site, which can be secured by condition. Overall, the development of the site in this manner is considered to be acceptable and in accordance with the provisions of the local plan and the NPPF. The closest residential property is some 30 metres away in Cornwallis Avenue here. That's away from the site boundary, but in excess of 75 metres from the school building itself. Due to the distances involved, it's considered there'll be no new issues with regard to loss of daylight, privacy, sunlight or outlook to these dwellings. There will be an increased vehicular movements along the proposed access road, which will be going along here, which could create additional noise and disturbance to the residents adjacent to the site. However, the modelling of vehicles accessing the site shows that predicted levels are likely to be below the World Health Organization guidelines, with no increase on current noise levels. In addition to this, the residential properties already front onto a busy road, which in itself creates noise and disturbance. The assessment of noise from the outdoor playground has predicted noise levels well below the World Health Organization guidelines, with no increase to current noise levels. For these reasons, the application is considered to accord with the local plan and NPPF. A new 6-metre wide access from Cornwallis Avenue is proposed, here. Running along the western boundary, the road will continue into the car park, accessing via a new bellmouth with a left turn egress only. A 3-metre wide footway will also be provided along the eastern side of the access road. The current bus stop, here, will be relocated to the east, moving this way, with a partial inset to improve the eastbound traffic alignment and to improve the visibility to the signalised crossing, here. This arrangement also enables the trees along here to be retained. The bus stop relocation will be achieved as part of the 278 agreement. The car park, to the rear here, will accommodate 112 cars within parking bays. However, there is also the stacking capacity for 74 vehicles on the spine road, here. Therefore, based on this available stacking capacity, it is considered that there will be sufficient capacity to accommodate the additional demand that arises during pupil drop-off and pick-up. Given the nature of the proposed school, it is anticipated no pupils will arrive by active travel modes or public transport. Pupil drop-off and pick-up would be undertaken by a combination of taxis, cars and minibuses. It's forecast that the school will generate a peak daily demand for 197 vehicles associated with staff, pupil drop-off, pick-up and visitors. As set out in the supplementary agenda, the transport assessment asserts that in the future up to 20 minibuses may be used daily. Due to the capacity of minibuses to carry more pupils, thus leading to less trips, this is considered acceptable. Junction modelling has been undertaken at the proposed Bellmouth, here, and at Cornwallis roundabout, here. The results indicate that both junctions have the capacity to accommodate the proposal. For the reasons set out above, the proposal is considered to be in accordance with the local plan and the NPPF. The application came in prior to the 12th of February 2024 when biodiversity net gain became mandatory. However, submitted information indicates that a biodiversity net gain in line with the legislation is possible, and biodiversity enhancements have been shown on the plans. Conditions are recommended with regard to protection and enhancement of biodiversity on the site, and subject to the imposition of these, the application is considered acceptable and in accordance with the local plan and NPPF. Due to the great need for this type of school in Medway, the sustainable location, together with the support in both local and national policy, the development is considered on balance to outweigh the objection from Sport England. The plans show a high-quality building set amongst soft landscaping that enhances the setting and ensures that it fits into the site without causing demonstrable harm to the character of the local area, amenity, or issues with regard to the highway network, and as such is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out and referral to the Secretary of State. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Principal Planner for that very comprehensive presentation and open it up to any member. At the moment, I see Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you. And once again, I'd like to congratulate you on an excellent and detailed proposal. Make myself very clear, I fully support this before I ask any questions, and I think it's something that's... Sorry, I've been turned off. Medway is required for a long, long time. So some of my questions you may not be able to answer today, and I'm more than happy to accept a briefing note or further information. So let's start off on the easy ones. So do we have a proposed start date and end date for this school to be produced, up and running, and accepting pupils? So that's question number one. Number two, in terms of the solar panels, do we know just how much power is expected to be generated by those panels, how the inverter panels, storage areas are going to be constructed, and how they're going to be cooled? Because that too could use quite a significant amount of the power generated. Number three, members are certainly aware that we have neighbouring authorities that are building on our borders. So is there any way we can put a condition on to say this school is primarily for Medway children and Medway children will always be taken first? And in regards to that, can we also ensure that the children that are going here, the priority goes to those who are currently being sent out of area, that those too, where possible, are chosen first to attend this school? Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I bring in Councillor Filmer, I'll ask the officers if they can address those points, although I have a feeling some of them might not directly relate to planning issues, but I'll leave it to Amanda.
As for when construction to start, I know that the applicants are keen to get on site immediately. Obviously, they've got issues that they need to resolve with regard to prior to commencement conditions. I believe that they would like to see pupils in by next September. I could be wrong, but I think that they want to open as soon as possible. With regard to the PV panels, I've got to be honest, I have no idea on output. I can definitely find that out for you, that's not a problem. And as for conditioning Medway children only, I'll refer to the Chief Planner.
No, Chairman, we can't cover it by a planning condition. I totally understand the reasons why Councillor Etheridge is raising that, and I'm sure that's supported by other members. I will feed that back to the education team.
And sorry, Chair, and in terms of the pupils that we send out of area, could we ensure where possible that they take priority to attend this school?
All your comments on that, Councillor Etheridge, I'll pass to the education team, and I'll get them to come back to you on that, but I totally understand where you're coming from. There was a fourth question, wasn't there, I think?
No, that's fine now.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Filmer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I certainly welcome this application. It's one of those projects that is overdue. Looking at the plans here tonight, the facilities there, it's always concerned me, one, the number of children we send out of area, but it's always concerned me the amount of time they have to spend travelling out of areas. So for me, we certainly embrace this sort of building, school. There's a couple of things. The parking side of it, because it will be different than other schools, it would probably pay to keep the parking side of it flexible, because until you see which children are coming, what problems they've got and how they get there transport-wise, I mean, it would appear you've got stacking, you've got plenty of parking spaces, but it may well be that you have more minibuses than cars and things, so the flexibility on that would be a good idea. You mentioned the word cladding, but I would think it would come under the building regs, that there's fire breaks in the cladding and it's the right material. So, but certainly embrace this. Absolutely well done.
Can I just address that with regard to the cladding? So we've had different iterations as the project's moved on, and the last one is due to the fire-resistant cladding and the need for it and the robustness of that. So that's why we are currently with the materials we're at, because of that very reason. Thank you.
Any other member? Councillor Galvin, thank you.
Yes, like my colleagues, I certainly welcome this, and I think they're absolutely right in saying that this facility will be really good for the young people involved, because this will cut the travelling time. We're sending far too many of our young people out of area, which is not good for them at all. I'm a little bit mystified with the Sports England comment, because I remember taking this to Cabinet, and that would have been 5 or 6 years ago, to designate the use of the land. And at the time, I'm pretty certain that it was explained to me that this land was still designated as an extension, possible future extension to the cemetery. It was never, what was in the 2003 plan, it was never intended that be a sports facility ever. And that's, if I remember rightly, the paper I took to Cabinet, but I may have got it wrong, because as I say, it was 5 or 6 years ago, distinctly said that the proposed former use was no longer required, because the bereavement service had done a deeper understanding of what the future requirements for burials was, as opposed to cremation, and the latter was becoming more popular. So the Sports England thing, I don't know how we've got ourselves into this mess. It's only perhaps because it seems to me that every agency that has England as a suffix in its title is a nightmare to deal with, but that's besides the point. But so I welcome this. But the only thing I think, as I say, this has had a very long gestation period. As I say, it's at least 5 or 6 years ago we talked about the transfer of the land to education purposes. But the only thing that's missing from this that was proposed in an earlier scheme was in fact to have residential accommodation for those young people who've got really severe challenges. And again, I think this is something perhaps not for this committee, but from those of us on children's and the like, we need to get accommodation here in Medway for some of our more disadvantaged children. Besides the cost that's involved in sending them out of area, again, it's not good for them either, because it's more difficult for their parents and family to visit them if they're based all over the country. So I think that is still a really dire need. We need somewhere for those difficult children. Well, difficult is the wrong word, isn't it? I've used before. It's challenged young children. They deserve to be treated and have a good start in life like every other child here in Medway. So that's something for the future, though. But just to reiterate, I really welcome this. It's been, only regret is it's been taken so long in the gestation, because it must be at least 5 or 6 years since this was first talked about.
Thank you, Councillor Galvin. I'll ask officers if they've got anything to add on this, but I do note that we have the indent A in the recommendations regarding referral to the Secretary of State, and I've no doubt the Vice Chair will be moving that at the opportune time. Chief Planning Officer, anybody?
Chairperson, other than agreeing totally with Councillor Galvin, I've got nothing to add really. I think we're required, they have objected, we're required to refer it to the Secretary of State, but I agree with what Councillor Galvin has said.
I have Councillor Peake next.
Thank you, Chair. As far as I'm concerned, this is a no-brainer. It's very straightforward. As the newly appointed governor to Bradfield School, I've heard about how there has been for a long time. And you said, Councillor Galvin, about it's such a shame that it took so long to get to this point. There's been a need for another specialised school for a long time. I'm also glad that the thought process has changed. I say it in context that I wish my daughter had gone to school like this when she was statemented and she went to a regular school. There was a thought process that is unhealthy to take children out of a normal environment and they'd be part of a mainstream. That would translate quite often in two ways. One, they would flounder and really suffer, or if they stayed at the school, they would actually be in a separate class, sometimes in a separate part of the school, and there'd be a lot of stigma there. So I'm glad those lessons have been learnt. A school like this is necessary. Thank you to Amanda Barnes, has clearly answered all the objections, so I'm ready to vote it through. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Nestroff, were you wanting to come in? Councillor Hammond-Dash.
No, thank you very much. Just want to say I'm in fully support of this application. Again, I echo the sentiment of my colleagues on both sides. Long overdue. I've got three real questions, really. First and foremost is about the fencing around. Especially a unit like this can raise sensitivities around discrimination for young people that have challenges around SEN. So can you give us some reassurances that that fence is not going to look like Alcatraz electrified type situation, and it's going to be done in a very sensitive way? And if we can put in measures so that there's better control and management of young people so they don't even want to think about scaling the perimeter fence. Second one is I really support the fact that the multiple entrances is really useful to ensure people who are going through an episode, a challenging episode, can be cared for in the most humane way instead of being outed. The third point, I guess, is maybe not for here, but maybe for education. So a provision such as this, which is long overdue, creates such a impact in the local community. There are lots of parents right now who have children in schools that are struggling to support their needs. Equally so, there are parents with children that have no place now at the moment. So back to your point about when this is going to be available to take the first children, can we really invite education on board so that they can be part of this conversation and figure out what's the best way of promoting this service? So I guess there are schools that have taken in SEND children that if those children knew that this provision was going to be there, they might have other choices to make in terms of where their child is schooled. And that might release some extra capacity for other children into those state schools as well. So just those three things. Thank you.
Right, just before I come to Councillor Fielder, officers got any comments on that? Amanda?
So with regard to the first point of the fence, that has been probably the biggest discussion we've had, because we wanted to make sure that while we understand the children have to be safe, and obviously we're dealing with teenagers here that can jump and climb a lot higher than you'd find in a primary school, we needed to make sure it actually looked aesthetically pleasing, and likewise we were concerned that we didn't want it to look like a prison. Now, all the fencing around the area is 3 metres. The boundary of the Yokosuka Way is an acoustic fence, so it's going to be a timber wooden fence. That is to block the noise, because the children, as you might be aware, have got sensitivities around noise. And obviously, playing outside in the mugger and the sensory gardens, they needed to dampen that noise down from the dual carriageway. What we've done with that is try and align the fence so that we can keep the trees that are currently there. They will need to be pruned, but we've spoken to Norse who look after the trees on that boundary. They've got no indication they'll be coming out or anything like that because we don't own, the applicants don't own that land. That's up to the council what happens. So we're advised that the trees will be staying. They'll need to be pruned to put the fence in, but then we will have additional landscaping also to soften that fence. When it comes to the front of the site, it will be a 3-metre fence. We haven't got down to the details, but it will be anti-climb, so it's likely to be the powder-coated fencing you see. I'm not aware that it's going to have anything on the top of it, no razor wire, no the things that angle in or anything like that. But that is a condition that we will obviously put on any approval so that we can look at the colour of that, we can look at the style of that if the application is approved, so to make sure that as far as we can, it's going to be sensitively designed. Also in front of that fence, which was the important point to where the bus stop is now going to be moved and realigned, we're then going to be able to keep the grass verge and the trees that are there. Originally, we thought with the highways impact it might have to go, but we're going to make sure that that stays. And as part of the 278 Works agreement, we're also going to see whether there's some uplift on there with some planting, because it's outside the application site, that we can then put in again to soften appearance. So I think where possible, it will be sensitive, but we do have to understand it will be 3 metres high and it will look different to another school because of the special needs that are arising from the pupils that are there. Likewise, internally, there'll be lots of access controls to try and ensure that there is no runners, so to speak. Everything within the school, there's fences within fences, so to speak, to make sure that where they're playing, they're safe. And also they do keep the two cohorts of children very separate because they're very different needs and they're not to mix, so that when one section are in the sports hall, the other section aren't, and there's doors and accesses between that are shut to ensure that. There's also, as you come into the school, additional doors and gates as well to make sure that if there are children that are entering that are having issues coming into school, they again are kept separate. They've got calming rooms, etc. So I believe the way it's been thought through, and the reason it's probably taken 6-7 years to get to this point, different iterations to try and ensure that it works. And I think we've got to where we're at a point where this is as good as we can get the scheme to look, and it will just be the build out now to make sure that the nuances look correct. With regard to when it's opening, I'm not sure at this stage, but that's something I can definitely feed back when I've spoken to the applicants and let everybody know. And then again, we'll take to education the other points I think you've raised.
Yeah, perhaps when response is sent to Councillor Etheridge, that could be sent to other members as well on that, because that mirrors the point which Councillor Etheridge made. Councillor Field.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, I think all members here would know that a lot of our casework, a lot of correspondence with people who live in our wards and our areas is around the provision of special educational needs provision. And to see such a project come forward is really needed. There's a lot of pain out there, particularly around as many others have noted, the length of travel that people have to make. So it's very welcome to see this provision brought in with purpose-built facilities. So like others, I'm fully supportive. I just want to take slight disagreement with my colleague, Councillor Galvin, around sport in England. I think this week it's been very satisfactory to hear those two, and I'd like to put on record, hopefully football is coming home this week. So as a committee, I think that's important to say. 2 points, if on a more serious matter. Firstly, obviously we're losing green space and we're getting hard standing. I note there is conditions around drainage, but you know, particularly with lots of car parking, lots of roofs, about making sure that, you know, we're seeing climate change. We're seeing, you know, even over the last couple of weeks, this weekend, for instance, some of the extreme rainfall. So there's an importance of doing that there. One thing I think that also came up was around pupils' travel, and I do appreciate for most of these pupils, specialist transport will be required. However, I do think that there will be some pupils actually, it would be good in terms of life skills to be able to encourage active transport and the use of public transport, and that's possibly an assumption that maybe we should be challenging and encouraging them not only within the staffing active travel plans, and I see the provision of some cycle storage, but actually I know other transport authorities do travel mentoring and things like that about if we can actually encourage a bit of that for some of the pupils who that's more appropriate. But yeah, thank you for an excellent presentation again.
I've seen Councillor Nestroff. Councillor Kemp as well? Yeah, okay. Those are the only two other members I've seen at the moment. Amanda, have you... Oh, Councillor Hamilton. Amanda, have you got anything to respond to Councillor Field? Thank you.
Not at this stage. I can't remember off the top of my head if we've got a condition on there. I don't have it in front of me for a travel plan.
Yeah, there's a travel plan condition and they've submitted a draft travel plan as well.
So with regard to the active travel, we have got the travel plan in there and we can work with the school with regard to certain pupils that may be able to do that. And obviously you've got the bus stop right outside, so that's also a benefit. And then you've got the crossing if you're coming from the other way. Vice Chairperson, may I go back with regard to the VP, the photovoltaic panels? Because I've just found something here which might answer the question.
Please do, yeah.
With regard to those, they're saying they're installing a roof-mounted PV array, which is equating to approximately 35 kilowatts per metre squared of the yield, according to a circa 600 metre square area. I hope this means more to you than it does me. With the additional of 17 kilowatts per metre squared needed to achieve the NZCIO delivered in the form of the ground-mounted array. So together, nearly 50 kilowatts. Over 50 kilowatts per metre squared of yield. Oh, now you're asking.
So then there is an opportunity to sell some of that back to the grid.
Shall we continue with the questions for the moment? So I've got Councillor Nestroff and Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to come in as a local councillor with some local knowledge about the area. Someone said that we might lose a green space. To be honest, this space currently is being left as it is, and it's often used by teenagers to race their motorbikes there for antisocial behavior. Having a school, a SEND school, they're actually going to fix two problems. Even though it probably won't fix the antisocial behavior, probably it's going to move it someplace else. But still, it's going to take away this space for the teenagers to race. So that's good. And I just wanted to reiterate a lot of what my colleagues said. You wouldn't imagine how many times I heard on the doorstep speaking with residents that we need another school and another special needs school. I even remember a conversation I had with a resident. She told me, vote with two hands if there is an opportunity for another school in Medway. So it's definitely very needed. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know whether there is anything for officers to come back on there, but thank you for your comments, Councillor Nestroff. I'll leave any comeback from the officers until after the next two contributions, though, and I'm afraid I got the order wrong. It's Councillor Kemp next and then Councillor Hamilton. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, whilst I thoroughly approve of a new school in Gillingham for SEND, I do think we have missed an opportunity because speaking as a governor of Abbey Court, which really is a centre of excellence, the problems concerning not just 11 to 18 but 19 to 25, which is also the council's responsibility. And at the moment, the children between and young people between 19 and 25 who have these special needs are being bussed down to Canterbury, which means that some youngsters are leaving home at 7 o'clock in the morning and not getting back till 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And I thought with the new school at Cornwallis Avenue, I thought there could at least been provision for 19 to 25-year-olds, and I see that there isn't, and I think that's a missed opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we're going to have a list of things for the Chief Planning Officer to relay back to the Children's Services. Councillor Hamilton.
Yeah, I think I echo what everybody else is saying. It's great to see that there potentially is more provision for our children here in Medway. I wanted to go to the road safety audit questions. So I noticed that there are 197 vehicles at peak time projected. I don't see any plans for EV charging on site. Has that been considered? Will that be added? Also quite concerned about potential idling and congestion and the air quality that might be impacted by 197 vehicles arriving at peak times. Have we considered in the preliminary highway design reducing the speed limit to 20 miles per hour and other measures which will ensure that we reduce idling as much as possible, try to address potential congestion, because clearly there will be congestion with that amount of vehicles arriving, and with another school quite close by as well. Yeah, what impact do we think we'll have on air quality? Clearly, as most vehicles are still not electric.
Yeah, well, Amanda, do you want to come in with George as appropriate? Thank you.
With regard to the electric vehicle charging, we've got 20% active and 80% passive as part of one of the conditions, so that will definitely be there. With regard to the air quality, we have had an air quality report, and again there's a condition on there with regard to the air quality emissions mitigation statement that needs to be submitted and approved by us on any approval. I take your point with regard to the idling. I believe the way the school are setting up is the two different start times for the different cohorts of pupils, so that there isn't going to be lots of hanging around and waiting of 197 vehicles. It will be that some start before others, so that they are coming in, dropping off, going, rather than idling on that spine road.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but most people leave the cars running, so there are issues with idling that need to be tackled.
Anything to say, George?
I mean, the school is going to be operating a quite robust car park management plan in order to, as well for the students' safety. So I believe the plan is that all the vehicles that will be dropping off or picking up are all going to be coming inside the school and sort of parking up inside these bays or in the lanes around in that carrying capacity that you mentioned earlier. And then sort of the gates will close so that all the students can be taken inside safely. And it's only then that all the cars will be let out again. And so while the cars are effectively parked, I would expect that the engines would be off. And I mean, I think any sensible car park management plan would go around and ensure that there isn't that sort of air quality issue happening within the school site.
And just on the 20 miles per hour in the highway design.
It's, I mean, it's a school site, it's a low-speed environment. I don't believe that there is a set out at any point that it will be, you know, the signage up, but being a private site, they would be able to put in a 5 mile an hour, 10 mile an hour roundel on the site if they wanted to do so, and I think that can be garaged.
I'm being quite persistent
Yeah,
by this. Outside the school boundary, have we considered a 20 mile per hour speed limit?
I mean, outside of the boundary is the dual carriageway, so I wouldn't recommend a 20 mile an hour limit there. Oh, sorry, the yes. Well, yeah. It hasn't been considered to bring it down to a 20 mile an hour road. It's I think that if you were to suggest that, the road design does not lend itself to being a 20 mile an hour road. It's much more likely that people would continue driving at the speed that they're travelling there currently.
Are you okay, Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah, I would like it investigated because obviously it is close to a roundabout. People will be slowing down, but there is potential for speeding outside of school, and any measures that we can put in place to reduce those potential risks would be appreciated.
I mean, is this something that the Chief Planning Officer and the Highways Authority could discuss?
Absolutely, Chairperson. So outside of this application, I think, which is the point that Councillor Hamilton has just said, so recognises that we can't deal with it through this application, but something for the Highway Authority to consider, and I'll happily have that conversation.
Okay, well, thanks very much. I also see that there was something in the supplementary agenda concerning the planning appraisal in terms of minibuses for later on. I noted that. I haven't seen any other member. Oh, yes, Councillor Pearce, my apologies.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just a minor point. On the presentation on the Google Earth image, the wrong site has been outlined in red. It's the one above the railway, but it should be south of the railway towards the roundabout. I thought I'd mention it just in case it's mentioned outside of this place. Thank you.
You're quite right. Thank you for pointing that out. I did outline the wrong site. When that was pointed out to me, I have actually on the slides here updated them. So what I was looking at and speaking to on the screen is the correct site, but you will have been given the incorrect site this morning. My apologies.
We wondered who'd be the first to spot that one. Councillor Pearce, well done. Thank you very much. If there are no other members wishing to contribute to the debate, and thank you very much for member contributions, shall we go to the Vice Chair?
I move the application is approved subject to conditions 1 to 30 and being referred to the Secretary of State.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Thank you. Do we agree the application? We'd like to vote.
That's 15, Chair.
Thanks very much. That application for the school site is approved, and we go on to the next agenda item, which is MC 240710 46 Cloisterham Road, Rochester, which is Jonathan Simon to present, I believe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. So this is application MC-24-0710 for 46 Cloisterham Road, and the application is for the construction of a two-storey extension to rear. As you can see here, the site is outlined in red, and just to the south sits Rochester Airport and the wider industrial estate there. As you can see from this plan, the properties within this estate all have different levels of setback and orientations. And here you can see the photos of the site. The two top photos are of the rear of the property, and then the bottom photo is of the street, from the street scene, where you can see the flank wall that is visible from the street scene. And this flank wall is adjacent to the nearby dwellings on Wemmick Close. These are the existing elevations, and these are the existing floor plans. And here are the proposed elevations. You can see the proposed windows on the left side elevation and the bottom right image. All of these windows are shown as obscure glazed because they do not serve habitable rooms, and a condition is recommended to secure this. As you can see, there's the rear extension. This will project approximately 2.7 metres from the existing rear wall, and this flank wall is over 10 metres from the original rear walls of the properties on Wemmick Close. And as such, it is not considered to be overbearing nor dominant. And whilst this extension would be seen from the street scene, it is considered that it's not harmful to the street scene or inappropriate to the character of the area. Here you can see the proposed floor plans, and you can see at ground level, which is the left plan, that the kitchen and lounge is extended. As part of the proposals, the existing dining room is changed to a bedroom. However, that could be done without a planning application anyway, because that's an internal change with no external changes. And then at the first floor, which you can see in the middle image, there is extensions to the 2 rear bedrooms and with en-suites added, and then there is an additional bathroom also added. All the bedrooms as part of these proposals exceed the space standards. And then finally, here you can see that an sun on ground test was carried out that shows that there are no unacceptable impacts in terms of loss of sunlight, daylight, over and above what's already present. And you can see that the gardens on Wemmick Close are only impacted for a relatively short time in the early morning period. The application is recommended for approval as set out.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I open it up to any member? Councillor Filmer.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a little bit of concern over this one regarding the street scene. Albeit we've looked at the photographs, but it's not the same as actually going up there and having a look. The house itself has already had the garage converted to habitable. With the extensions on the back, and there is mention it may become a small house of multiple occupancy, which does concern me. But by looking at these photographs, and it's on a bend, so from I'd really like to go, if we could have a site meeting and go up and have a look at this. I'm not saying I'm against it, it's just I'm not convinced that it's not detracting from these houses up there on that estate.
Well, we have a proposal for a site meeting from Councillor Filmer. All I can say is that councillors have to be mindful as to whether there's anything additional that would be picked up from a site visit which couldn't be seen from the officer presentation. That's my only thought on that. But if you're putting that forward as a proposal, Councillor Filmer, we shall have to have a vote on it.
I'd like to put it forward because we're only looking at one angle from the photographs and we're not looking further round, are we?
Can I just check the position with the clerk and legal officer on that? Because we've also had some photographs from Councillor Clark, which might have complicated the issue. Thanks. Yes. Yeah. Is there a second proposal from a site visit? Yes, Councillor Etheridge. The Chief Planning Officer wanted to say something before I go to the vote. I'm sorry, Peter Hockney.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think members can see from the bottom photograph on this slide. This is the view of the essentially most apparent view from the street on Cloisterham Road, and you can see there that it's an oblique angle of the property, and the extension is wholly to the rear of the property. So, to my mind, the extension would have a minimal impact on the view from the street, and certainly no harm caused from that. It is my view that there would be nothing further gained from visiting the site over and above what can be viewed from that slide and the rear, the bottom photograph combined with the elevational drawings that have been submitted. But for members decision. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Etheridge, do you want to make a seconding contribution?
Yes, please. I quite agree with what you're saying. You're saying it's a minimal impact, but it's still impact. And there are members sitting here tonight who also had a minimal impact on a building they were putting in place with a heat pump, but they were forced to move it simply because it had a minimal impact on the street scene.
I hate to hesitate to interrupt you, Councillor Etheridge. I mean, what we must do is stick to the issue of the site.
We are sticking to the issue, and what I'm saying is, if it's suitable for one application to be changed because it's minimal impact, I think it's quite right that we have the opportunity to view this one because it has minimal impact. I see no difference between the two. All I'm asking for is a bit of consistency.
The proposal for a site visit has been made by Councillor Filmer, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Can I put that to the vote? All those in favour?
That's 7, Chair.
Against?
That's 6, Chair.
Okay, the proposal for a site visit is carried, and that will conclude the discussion on this application for the time being. I propose that the Chair, Vice Chair and spokespersons be involved in discussions with the Chief Planner as to an appropriate date for a site visit. We now have a further report for information purposes on housing buffers, and I'm going to hand over to the Chief Planner, or whichever one of his officers is introducing this. It is him.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Members will be very familiar with the housing delivery test now. We've been having to do an action plan for about five years now, since it was brought in 2018. So what this does, members, as you know, is to look at the 3 years prior to the key year in terms of the number of homes delivered against the number of homes needed using the standard methodology. Now, if the percentage of delivery is 95% below in terms of the need, we have to do an action plan. If we're below 85%, we have to do an action plan and have a 20% buffer. And members, you know my view on the 20% buffer. If we can't make the housing need, how are we going to make it added with a 20% buffer? But that's the rules. And then if we're below 75%, then effectively this double presumption in favour of sustainable development comes into play. Now, in relation to the action plan, what this is about is how you as a local authority, or how we as a local authority, working with the development industry to increase housing delivery in our area. Now, when the housing delivery test was first introduced, our performance was around about 47%. Now, we've worked very hard, you've worked very hard since then, to increase that percentage up to 55, then up to 67, and now for the year in mind here, which is 2022, we're at 79%. So for the first time, we're out of the presumption in favour of the double presumption in favour of sustainable development. But we still have to do the housing delivery test action plan. What the action plan does, as members can see here, is it sets out the reasons for under-delivery, the actions that we're taking to boost delivery or have been taken to boost delivery, and any suggested further actions on there. Now, members, whilst next year, so we're looking at the delivery for the year 2022, whilst next year the housing the delivery test will likely to go down slightly to take us below 75% again, which is due to the economy over the past year. However, with the move towards getting a local plan in place, which is the fundamental way that we're going to increase housing delivery to meet our need, that would bring more certainty, and we anticipate that with the timescale that we're currently working to in terms of the local plan, we should be out of presumption again by 2025. So the main measure to boost economy will be the local plan. Other actions, and I have to applaud this planning committee, you make some very difficult decisions at times, and you should be applauded for that. The Medway Development Company is also a good way of boosting performance. We're delivering on sites where the private sector is not delivering. And then we're also leading in terms of Kent authorities, in terms of resolving current issues on the delivery of affordable homes. So again, we should be complimented for that. So members, it's an information report. It's been agreed by the by Cabinet, but happy to take any questions, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Chief Planning Officer. Councillor Etheridge first, I think.
Thank you, and thank you, Dave, for that report. I'm just wondering if we could have a quick update in terms of the applications that have already been approved and land banked, what we can do to force those developers to actually start building on those areas.
Chairman, thank you very much. Very good question. I mean, we are to a degree lucky in Medway in that there are very few permissions which get land banked. Most are implemented within a reasonable time scale, and I use the word reasonable because there's still 18 months to 2 years before they do finally get spades in the ground. However, as you say, Councillor Etheridge, there are schemes which have stalled. We've got a list of them. We have gone to the local SME forum, which we set up, and we're working with them to see if they can take up any of those sites. And we're in contact with the owners and saying, why aren't you continuing to build? What's causing you difficulty? Is there a way that we can help? The bigger issue for us is not land banking. It's more, as the economy has been affected over the last few years, they're built slower. So they're not building, they're just building slower.
Thank you for that. And a quick follow-up, if I may. We also were requested by the government sometime to promote self-build. How is that progressing?
Chairman, and again, another really good question, Councillor Etheridge. Thank you for that. We have our self-build register, and there's a lot of people on that register. We have some sites that have come forward. There's one which has been built out at Cliffwoods, which looks fine. It's on Mary's Boys Road, and you know it very well, Councillor Etheridge. It's in your ward, and I know you know it very well. There's another one out at High House, which has been taken up a lot slower. They put the road in. We're dealing with some reserve matters applications on that, but it's been despite the fact that we've got a self-build register. And when someone gets permission, we provide the names off, or we contact the people on the register and say, look, these 6 plots here which have been given consent. So that's been a bit of a slow take-up. There were 3 plots out at Lower Rainham Road, which went past the other day. They put the foundations in there, so that one is moving. The other thing that we're working on, again with the SME Forum, we're working with them in terms of a product which will make self-build more affordable for more people. As Councillor Pearce knows, they did bring forward that model on a site which we couldn't support because of its proximity to Nightingales and their site of special scientific interest. But the model itself is a good one, and we will be working with them to see if we can use that on other sites.
Any other member? Did I see you, Councillor Peake? I can't. Councillor Gelvin, I know, and then Councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a very detailed and good report, and I'd like to thank the officers who produced it. I did, however, spot one factual error. On page 117, it stated that a CPO was used to acquire Mountbatten House. It wasn't. We just threatened to use a CPO, and it brought them to the table in double quick time. And interestingly, another case of threatening to use a CPO, 364 Rochester High Street, if you remember, Mr Harris, that the owner, a terribly derelict property next to the synagogue in Chatham Intra. As soon as the CPO was threatened, the owner suddenly appeared out of the woodwork, so that was good. But I think one of the problems is that we have not really got much control over this, although we're having to bear the brunt of this. Our means of increasing the housing supply are quite limited, and it was brought home to me because, funny enough, just after I'd read this morning the agenda for this evening, after lunch I looked at the paper, and then in the Daily Telegraph's business section I found the following article: Barratt lowers targets for building homes is the headline. The developer Barratt yesterday revealed it would build fewer houses this year and forecast up to a 7% fall in construction. Yeah, we've got no control over that. Also, another problem is we're increasingly reliant on the big volume builders. But there's all getting together, because separately it says in the article, Bellway is on track to buy rival house builder Crest Nicholson. So that will again reduce the shot. Nothing we can do about that. I suppose they're using the charts because it says in the further on in the article that Crest Nicholson posted a £31 million loss in the 6 months to May. So I think that rather belies the image that the developers are all making huge, great profits. They're not, because the big jump in profit is made not by the developer, it's made by the landowner. Once you've got that outline planning permission and the land is designated to have houses, that is where the huge increase in value of the land goes. And I, for one, certainly would like to see a development land tax introduced, which was the case up to, I think, 1963. And because all the real gain goes to the landowner, the builder doesn't actually, the construction, the developer doesn't actually make very good margins at all, as that article about Crest Nicholson's losses shows. The other problem we've got is that it seems to be common in the industry amongst the volume builders that on each site, that building and selling 50 units a year is some sort of optimum target, because that gives them the economies they want, and to push those out would be of no benefit to them. And I think again we need to look to perhaps a new government to consider giving local authorities the power, if the site has not been built out in the 3 years, that they have to start paying council tax on the buildings, whether they're built or not. I mean, that might encourage them to build it, but they need some incentive to build out faster. We haven't got the stick. We've got a few little bits of carrot, which Dave has outlined, and I think we've done a lot of good work there. But we also need a bit of a big stick, and I think it's up to government to give us that stick. As we all know, also there's severe problems with brownfield sites, and certainly we found that with the Medway Development Company when we started to dig out the foundation and the undercroft parking sites at Chatham waterfront. When the diggers went down, they came across what was effectively a 200-year-old river wall, to support the land. That blew the entire contingency budget for the entire project, dealing with that. So brownfield sites are not easy to develop, and I know as a planning committee we've been not very happy when developers have come back and said they want to have less 106 contributions because of the viability issues. But that is a fact, and it has to be dealt with. But I think this is, as I say, a good report, but I think we've got to remember that we're really just enablers. Whilst MDC is doing a really, really good job in building out, and also the HRA has taken quite a considerable amount, but even there there's been problems, as mentioned, with the affordable housing element that RPs are not very, very keen to take them over. And that was the case for the affordable housing for the waterfront development, which was being built as we speak at Britton Farm. It took a long, long time to find that there was no RP willing to take that site on. And in the end, Councillor Doe suggested we took it into the HRA, which is the case. That will go, Britton Farm will be housing revenue account housing. So there are all these problems, and they're still not resolved. Fortunately, with MDC, we had the flexibility to do that. And unfortunately, the present administration have restricted that flexibility by not keeping close control of the business by members of this council. And I think in a very short time, they will begin to regret that decision. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, a lot of interesting points there. I was almost with you all the way up until the last comment, Councillor Galvin. Do officers wish to say anything before Councillor Filmer? Councillor Filmer I'll take now, and then any comeback from the officers after that. Yes, thanks. Councillor Filmer.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a couple of observations, really. Very pleased to hear the council's working with the small developers. The number of houses small developers do, when you add them all up over the course of a year, amounts to quite a few, and they do build high quality, not volume. A little bit about the south builds. Some small developers think it's a vehicle having south build plots. People can get planning permission rather than the small developers. So people use the south build as a vehicle. Now, some of the plots that you mentioned, south build, if that had been not south build, I can assure you they'd have been out the ground now. So it's perhaps worth looking at that bit. But very good report, and we just got to try and make these builders build a bit quicker.
Any other member? Anything from the Chief Planning Officer further? Shall I go to the Vice Chair?
The committee notes the Medway Housing Delivery Test Action Plan.
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
Are we agreed? Want to take it back?
Thank you. 15, Chair.
Thank you very much. I believe I'm right in saying that that concludes the business for the evening. But just before people leave, there is insufficient business for a planning committee meeting on the 31st of July, so I believe the next planning committee meeting will be on the 28th of August, and I'll see you all then. Many thanks indeed, members and officers, for your presentations. Thanks.